Okay, thank you so much. What a nice introduction. Holy cow. Every once in a while you get a really cool introduction like that and you wish like your kids could hear it. And I've been speaking for a lot of years, and once I took my daughter to one of the conferences with me and I got up and did my speech, but before I did that, a past district governor, maybe you know him, Mike McCullough. Mike McCullough said to my daughter, Debbie, "Have you heard your mom speak?" And Debbie said, "Every day of my life." She wasn't that impressed. So anyway, I'm so happy to be here with you today, and what a cool conference you're having. I've never done a TriCon before, but you guys really have it down, and it's been just a pleasure visiting with you, many of you, since yesterday when I got in here. So it's such an honor to be here because there are so many Rotary stories in this room, and I'm so honored to be here and talk to you about what I'm passionate about, which is economic community development. That is my passion. That's what I've been involved in, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, I'm going to tell you like how we got there, and I want you to remember. I know you're all really smart, educated people, and I could throw statistics up there till the cows come home, and you'd all understand that. But tonight, I only need for you to remember one number, and that number is 33,000. 33,000 is the number of people that die needlessly every single day in this world. Needlessly. They're preventable deaths. Most of those deaths are children under the age of 5 years old. That's not okay. That's not okay with me. We are involved in projects. I have been involved in projects for years and years and years, and still we have 33,000 people dying needlessly every single day. We invest our money. We invest equipment, medical equipment, our time, our volunteer hours, all those things, and still we have that happening. That's not okay, so I decided I was going to try to figure out why that is. So I've been involved in projects for 20 years, more than 20 years, and evaluating projects for the last 15 years. And so when I did that, then I started to think about what's our return on our investment? What are we getting back for all of these hours and all this dedication and all this medical equipment going all over the place? And it always comes back to that number for me, that 33,000 people die needlessly. So I've been involved in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Bangladesh, Romania, all over the place. And still, when I go there, I see failed projects. I see projects that really are successful and helped a lot of people, and I see failed projects. And so how can that be? These are projects that I helped support, projects that I helped build, that I came and got money for, and talked to people about supporting this project because it's like the best thing. So do this project, they did it, and then I go back to find rusted out medical equipment in the field. And I'm really a smart woman. Really, I am. I've got a PhD and an MBA, I'm telling you. I'm smart, and in spite of all that, I managed to be involved and promote and get money for failed projects. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that tonight. What you need to know is that I'm smart. We have to establish that right away, because I'm getting ready to tell you all the stuff I messed up on, okay? This isn't naturally blonde hair. This is bleach blonde hair. Underneath this bleach blonde hair is a really smart brunette who really failed in a lot of projects. So here we go. I'm going to start with a quote from Gandhi. And Gandhi said, "Don't tell people what to do. Tell people a story and they'll know what to do." So I'm going to tell you my story tonight. So I got involved in a project in Indonesia. And this was after being a group study exchange team leader for 6 weeks in Bali, Indonesia, and Lombok. And at that time, I was really involved in a blood bank and wanted to get busy with that when I got home. After we got that all taken care of, which is a story like ancient history, we got that taken care of. Then I heard from that district, 3,400, and they sent me a UNICEF report from that they had submitted to the United Nations. And that report said that the children in Indonesia were in worse straits than any of the children in Asia. And they were in jeopardy of losing an entire generation. And the way that would happen is because they didn't have proper education and they didn't have proper nutrition. Well, I thought about that, and I thought, well, when I was in Indonesia, I went to a village, a remote village. Excuse me. To get to this village, you had to go through a rainforest, you had to drive over all kinds of crazy roads, you had to finally get out of the car and then walk into this village. And so when I got there, women were lined up, and women wanted me to hold their babies. And so I did hold their babies. But their babies were like babies I never held before. Their babies had swollen bellies. Most of them were naked. They had chunks of hair missing. Many of them would die of malnutrition before I even had my 6-week thing up. They smelled, they were hungry, and their mothers would just have me hold their babies like a couple seconds, and then the next mother would come up and want me to hold her baby. And so finally I said to Freddie Subianto, my counterpart and GSE person, why do these moms want me to hold their babies? And he said, I think it gives them hope. I said, really? Hope for what? He said, hope that they probably think that you're a mother too, and that now that you've seen their suffering children, you'll do something about that. I said, do what? I mean, this was like lines of women. And he said, I don't think they know what. I don't think they have any idea what resources are available to you, but I think that they're really wanting you to do something, but I don't think they know what either. You know what? I didn't remember anyone ever looking at me with hope before. I found it a profound responsibility. It was just huge. It was like, I don't know what I'm going to do or what I even could do to help these people. But then after I got home, that's when I got the fax from it was back in the fax days, I got the fax from the District 3400 with the UNICEF report asking me if I could help children. Well, these weren't faceless, voiceless children. To me, they were children I had seen, and these were mothers I had met. And so here's what they told me. It was like the best thing. They said, for $60, you can keep a child in school for a whole year, and $60 will pay for their books, their tuition, their shoes, their uniforms, 1 cup of rice a day, and meat twice a week, and a daily nutritional supplement. Okay, so if we could do that, we would be hitting the nutritional problem and the educational problem for $60 a year. I thought, this is no problem. I'm going to send like 20 kids to school. I'm just going to go tell my club about it, and then we'll just see. Well, I did tell my club about it, and they really got behind it, and they wanted way more than 20 kids in school at $60 a piece. And so it seemed as though everyone I talked to wanted to give me $60 to get at least one child in school, which I thought was just amazing, and I was so grateful. But I kept going back to the village year after year with the names, and then I would see children that really wanted to go to school and really deserved to go to school, but they couldn't afford to go to school, all except for $60. So, in true Marilyn Fitzgerald style, I thought, well, there's probably like 200 kids here that need to go to school. And so I went to the village elders and said, you know what, I'm going to talk to my district, and I'm going to write matching grants. It was back in the matching grant day. I'm going to write some matching grants, and we're going to put every child in this village in school. So as that turned out, there were 1,200 children in that school, not 200 children in that village that needed to go to school right after I made this crazy promise. Makes you wonder what I was drinking when I was there. So then I thought, holy cow, that's like 1,200 kids at $60, that's $72,000 a year. But I made the promise. So I came home and I talked to everybody I could talk to everybody, and I'll be darned, I had enough money. I had the $72,000 to send these kids to school. So I went back to the village the next year, and we got like everybody's name, and we got it all on a clipboard, and we went back to talk to them about, okay, your children are on the clipboard. I've got enough money for them all to go to school. The mothers lined up to make sure their children were on the clipboard. Freddie was there with me. And so we kept doing that for 3 years. 3 years, I'd go back to the village and make sure every child was in school. I'd take pictures of the kids and take those pictures back to the different clubs. And this is how we got 100% people involved in international program. Took the Christmas pictures back, like they used them for their Christmas programs, of all these kids lined up in their uniforms with their backpacks and all that kind of stuff. So the donors were really happy. I was really happy. The villagers seemed really happy. But then there's the next year, right? So then I thought, wow, I guess we're going to do this again. So we kept doing this for about 3 years. Then finally, this rice farmer came up from the field. And this rice farmer is, his name is Naaman. He came up from the rice field, and he didn't talk to me, but he did talk to Freddie. And so he's talking to Freddie, and I'm trying to do names off the list, which isn't easy. I don't speak Indonesian, and the names clearly are all Indonesian. So I'm trying to get all this. Finally, I say to Freddie, what's up? And he said, this guy, this farmer Naaman, wants to know if we really want to help. Like, really? He wants to know that? Like, I'm just like a sweaty mess coming through the rainforest and everything, year after year. I said, yeah, we really want to help. And he said, well, Naaman told me if we really want to help, he wants a water buffalo. I said, really? We don't do water buffaloes. We do academic scholarships. Let's stay focused here. And so we moved. Freddie kept talking to Naaman, and I thought, have a good day, guys, because we're doing scholarships here. So later, Freddie talked to me. He said, Naaman, I said, why does he want a water buffalo, and why is he coming to us anyhow? And he said, because if he had a water buffalo, he could triple his rice crop. And if he tripled his rice crop, he could afford to send his own children to school, and we have 3 of his kids on our list. And I said, well, not that I care, but how much does a water buffalo cost? And he said, about $250. I said, okay, where would we get a water buffalo? And he said, we can get one from the neighboring village if we wanted to do that. So I thought about it a long time on the way home, and I thought about Naaman and his 3 kids on my list, and I thought about, well, you know what? That would be the first time in history that one of my lists was getting smaller rather than bigger, and it would save me $180 a year that I didn't have to raise, and that's where the MBA was really paying off. And so I thought, okay, let me do the numbers here. $180, $250 for a water buffalo, that sucker's paying for itself, within 2 years. I'm cool. But then I thought, I can't really go home and ask everybody, like, guess what? How about if we buy a water buffalo? Just, if any of you raise money, you understand, like, when you get your donors marching in one track, you want to keep going down that track with them, right? You don't come back and say, I'm thinking a little bit about some livestock. What do you guys think? So that wasn't going to fly. So Christmas was coming, and my family said, what do you want for Christmas? And I thought, I want a water buffalo. And they said, okay, did Mom take her malaria medication, or she didn't take her malaria medication? What are you going to do with the buffalo? So I told them Naaman's story, and they listened really well. And the next, that was Christmas Eve. Next day, it was a week before Christmas. Then Christmas Day, there was this little box under the tree, which I thought, I just need an envelope with some cash in it, okay? So in this box, there's $251 bills. And a little note that said, hey, Mom, don't spend it all in one place. But I did. So I sent that off to Freddie. He got the water buffalo. I didn't think too much about it because that was Christmas, and I don't hit Indonesia until probably March because I can't get enough of the monsoons, right? Always go during the monsoons. And so he got the water buffalo. I go to the village the next spring with Freddie and our whole entourage, and Naaman is running up from the rice fields toward me. And Naaman never spoke to me before that. He never even looked at me before that, right? And so this is like a little skinny guy with a sarong on and no teeth and one of those cool straw hats. And he's wanting to take my hand to go into the rice fields where I don't like to go because the rice fields are mucky and they have green snakes in them. And so I'm saying to Freddie, Freddie's saying, go, he wants you to go in the rice fields. And I'm like, I got on really cute shoes. I don't want to go there. He said, just go. So I went through the rice fields with him and watched where I was stepping the whole time. And when he stopped, I stopped, and we looked up at this big, beautiful, brown-eyed water buffalo. It was so cool. And so Naaman was going to introduce me to the water buffalo, and he said, Ibu Marilyn, Ibu Marilyn, Ibu Marilyn, Ibu Marilyn. Yeah, I know. I looked at Freddie and said, did he name that water buffalo after me? He said, yeah. I said, how cool is that? That's so cool. So the rest of that trip, I got to watch Naaman and Ibu Marilyn in the rice fields together, and he was so smiley and looking at me in the eyes and had such great pride. And his wife stood in line that year only to tell me she didn't have to be in line, that her children were already taken care of because Naaman's deal was he had to save enough money to put his own kids to school. That was great. Then I went home, and then a little while later, I get a fax from Freddie saying the women in the village were so inspired by Naomi that they wanted you to buy them 20 piglets. Hello. Really? And what are we going to do with 20 piglets? And he said they're going to raise the piglets into pigs. They're going to sell them to neighboring villages. They're going to use manure in the rice field, and they're going to harvest the pigs for their own food, for nourishment for their children. And I thought, oh, how much are 20 piglets? And he said about $180. I said, well, guess what? I had a birthday coming up. So my kid said, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I'm thinking piglets. Thinking, yeah, about $180 for piglets. So we did it, sent the money. I didn't really think too much about it. Then a couple months later, I get this grainy picture from a fax of these women all lined up holding these cute little piglets like under their shoulders with a big sign that said, Happy Birthday, Ibu Marilyn. Best birthday present ever. So that was so cool. So then I put the picture on my bulletin board, and I named every piglet and got all attached to them and everything. Then we went back to the village, and the piglets, they grow really fast, and they were big hogs going all over tarnation. So we had to work on a fence and all that kind of stuff and get all that stuff all together. Then the kids were so inspired by that they wanted some hens. And if they had hens, they would make salt eggs. Salt eggs are something that I never tasted one, but I hear they're okay. You float these eggs on salt water for about 10 days, and then they sell them for snacks in Indonesia, and they eat them. So what do I know? So there were fewer and fewer people in that line because the women were making money on the piglets, or the now hogs, and that went on. Within 3 years and less than $1,000, the hens were $120, and a rooster. So, of course. So we got that whole thing done, and we got for the $120, $180, and $250, less than $1,000, those people became economically independent. And they replaced my $72,000 budget like that. Well, 3 years. But still. Now, I would love to tell you that was like I was the genius behind that, right? I thought, maybe if I do some of this stuff, they'll all be okay. That wasn't it at all. I would love to say that, but that really isn't what happened. They thought of it. And here's the embarrassing part. When I heard that report, I went to that village with the report in my hand, and I said, here's the message I think I gave the villagers. You guys got a big problem. You can't educate your kids, and you can't feed your kids. So you just sit right there. I'm going to run out here and get some resources and make that happen. I'm going to pay for their food and pay for their education because I got some really good Rotarian friends that are going to help me do that. So where was the dignity in my message to the villagers? I think it was that I just don't believe in you. You got a problem, and I guess I won't even pay you the dignity of asking you what you think the solution is, because they had a solution. And I could have saved myself a lot of grief and my fellow Rotarians and the Rotary Foundation a lot of money if I had just asked them, what do you think you can do about this problem? They certainly deserve the respect of that question, right? Sad thing is, I never asked the question. Good thing is, they figured it out, and I just happened by accident to listen to Naomi and get the water buffalo. But I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And I thought, if I hadn't listened to Naomi and he hadn't been successful at what he did, today I would be getting $60 out of each one of you for a kid in Indonesia. So think about that. I bet I could have sold it to you. I bet I could have said, you guys, we got to do this. And you'd give me the money. But after this whole thing happened with Naomi and the whole village, and now they're all independent, and they've all got their kids in school, and they don't need me anymore, I started to think about all the projects I'd been involved in that weren't sustainable. Because after all, the only thing those kids were just dependent on me coming home and getting the money. And me feeling really good. But when I went back to the village and the parents were paying for their own children to go to school, that pride looked so much better on them than it ever looked on me. It wasn't my pride. I had no business wearing that. That belonged to them. But that can't happen unless we listen to the people we're trying to help. Unless we say, hey, you got any ideas? You think you can fix this problem? If I gave you the opportunity and the proper resources, you suppose we could fix this problem together? Think of all the heartache I would have saved myself and a whole bunch of other people if I had just asked those questions. So then I started to think about all the other projects I've been involved in and what did they look like, and all that started to get kind of mucky, so I decided to do some disciplined research with other foundations, not Rotary, because I'm too close to it. So other foundations that thought they had sustainable projects. Went and talked to their people in the field in all those other countries and tried to figure out if those projects were sustainable. They were not. They're dependent on donors just like we are. And so it's not sustainable until we ask the people what the solution is, and the people tell us, and we listen, and then we help them with that opportunity. So as I looked around at other things, I started to look at economic development because that really seemed like a good idea to me. And I'm telling you, I think Rotary is uniquely positioned to have a major impact on extreme poverty through economic development. We have 1.2 million Rotarians in 35,000 plus clubs in 120, 60, whatever, how many countries. And we are leaders in our community. So all we have to do is focus. And if we focus on sustainability, we can be there. We can make that happen. So I think we can have that impact. So I went around looking at things, and so finally I stumbled, and I do mean stumbled, on microfinance. And thought, I saw some projects in Guatemala that I was impressed with. And so I went and looked at those, and then I invested in a microfinance project just for the fun of it and see what that looks like. So I went back to that project a year later and went into the fields with a Mayan translator and met Shirley the tortilla maker. You can't talk to Shirley without this going on, like nonstop. And it seems like an easy thing to do, but it's really hard to do. She tried to teach me. I cannot make a tortilla. So anyway, we went to meet Shirley the tortilla maker, who I wanted to meet for a really long time. And you could smell her tortillas as you're going into the backwoods. It was just great. So the Mayan translator says, this is Marilyn. Marilyn is the person that got you this microloan to buy this pan, to buy the ingredients for your tortillas. That microloan came from Marilyn. Shirley, a woman like about this big, looked at me and pointed at me and said, and I paid you back. Okay, this is what we're shooting for. We want somebody. I was so proud of her. She took so much pride in her own success, which is what we want people to do, right? We don't want them to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so pleased that you did that for me. All I did was provide an opportunity. Shirley's the one that took advantage of it. Before that, Shirley didn't even know how to count. Not even how to count. She learned or to sign her name. She learned how to count by using coffee beans. Now she can pull out this dirty little book and tell me how much it costs to make a tortilla, how many she has to make to break even, and how much money she has to set aside in order to put her children to save money for her children to go to school. That's a big deal. So for the last 10 years, that's all I've been involved in is microfinance, which seems like I would like to say like all those projects before, like in Indonesia and even the microloans, it would be just great if it was all as easy as buying a water buffalo or a hen or piglets or whatever, or a tortilla pan or whatever. But it's not that easy. Because you know why? Because these people have no education. Think of all the businesses in the United States that fail. They start up and they fail. They start up and they fail. That's when we have an education we can count, right? So I figured out the 4 components. I didn't figure it all out. Some of it came from Grameen Bank with Dr. Eunice, who wrote the foreword to my book. So the 4 components in a healthy microfinance program are education, the loan resources, networking, and mentoring. This is exactly what the Balinese Indonesians did in the microfinance or in the agricultural thing that we were doing there. So that they provided mentoring, all that horrible drive I hated taking, they took every single Saturday and went into the village and taught those people literacy skills and taught those people how to run a business. Women didn't know the cost of goods sold for a pig or a hog or whatever they were doing. They didn't know how to harvest it. They didn't know what they should charge for it. They didn't know what it cost to feed it. So that took Rotarians to teach them that. The same thing is true in microfinance. They have to have education, networking, and mentoring, and that's who we are as Rotarians. I bet if I took a hand count, most of the people in this room are entrepreneurs or had been entrepreneurs. This is what we can do. This is what can happen in microfinance. So we have to provide education, make sure that that happens. Networking, who networks better than we do? So that if your club supports an entrepreneur, somebody that's selling popcorn or whatever, every person in your club is going to be buying popcorn, right? That's great networking, and then you're going to tell other people about it and all that kind of stuff. So the networking and the mentoring to say, why am I not making money? So I think I've had a lot of people say they want to be involved in microfinance, and I want a lot of people involved in microfinance. I want the whole world involved in microfinance, but I want you to understand there's 4 really important components for a successful microfinance project. And you can do that. We can do that. That's who we are. And I think that if we did that, like if I had a dream, if they said, Marilyn, click your heels together 3 times and you can have anything happen, it would be like that every district in the world supported a microfinance program right here, right where we are, and we made it happen in our communities because that's community economic development. And all of those communities are full of leaders in that particular community. So we've taken the exact model that we used in Guatemala, which is loosely fashioned after the Grameen model in Bangladesh. We took that to Detroit, Michigan, because I was out on the road, and I came home and read all this stuff about Detroit, Michigan. It was just horrible, it's falling apart, and I'm up in Traverse City, so I've got some nice feelings about Detroit, Michigan, but I've got really good friends over there in 6400 with Mike McCullough, and Larry Wright, and those guys. So I went to them and said, hey, how do you guys feel about doing a microfinance thing right here? Because I looked around Detroit, and I understand to everybody else it looks like big crumbly buildings and all that, but not to me. I'd been working in the underdeveloped world. Detroit had highways, they had buildings, empty buildings even, that we could use. They had roads, they had ability to transport things. Surely microfinance would work there. So we took that same model and we applied the networking, the loan capital, the mentoring, and the education to those entrepreneurs. And I'm happy to say we're doing that in 4 other places in the United States, and it's going quite well. So the deal is, here's what I think. I think if we get involved in our own communities and help provide opportunities in other communities where they're just not, in an undeveloped world or whatever, I think we'll see a big change, because I feel very strongly that we have to get off from the charity train and get on to the opportunity train. And the opportunity train means that we're not going to just keep giving all of this stuff away like the foundation is a bottomless pit. We're going to invest in sustainable projects that will be there even after we're gone. Because when we invest in people, and we invest in economic development in those communities on a grassroots level, I think we're really going to have a major impact on extreme poverty. So if we do that in every district, I think that'd be great. And I think we have to if we stop to think that charity robs people of dignity, there is nothing empowering about charity. So when you're standing in a line to get some handout, it might be a really good day for us that we're giving this stuff to these people, but it's not a really good day for them. I'm a psychologist. I'm telling you, people don't take pride in that. People aren't empowered by that. But what people are empowered by is opportunity. And if we can provide opportunity for people, we're going to find out that we have listened to them, we've asked the right questions, we've listened to them, and we've implemented their ideas, and they will keep it together. They will be the glue that keeps it together. So when I started Rotary, I decided I was going to save the world, right? Because why not? Just save the whole darn world, because I got this whole big force of Rotarians behind me, so what could be wrong with that? Well, I was collecting money one day, and it wasn't really going that good in the club. Hard to believe, I know. But I was collecting money and saying, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And one Rotarian had the nerve to come up to me and say, Marilyn, you know what? You can't save the whole world. I thought, really? That's like telling me about Santa Claus or something. It was just a bad day. And so we were picking up our stuff off the table after the meeting, our brochures, and I was talking to my good friend Wes. And I said, so-and-so said to me, you can't save the whole world. And Wes was somebody that mentored me, and I love him. And he said, you know what, Marilyn, you can't save the whole world. Not from you. I don't need this from you. He said, but what you can do is you can light a candle in a dark corner. And that candle can give off hope. And that hope can keep people going for one more day. One candle in a dark corner. And that's what I see as opportunity. Naaman was that candle for his village. And he gave all of the rest of the village hope. And that really, really stuck with those people. Much more hope than I ever gave them over a 6-year period. Much more hope. And so providing hope is a really important thing to do. Now I'm going to wrap it up with, I'll go back to Gandhi. When Gandhi said, be the change. Be the change in the world. Right where you're standing here and over there too, be that change in the world. The change. Don't save the world. Be the change in the world by providing opportunities in economic development on a grassroots level with communities. And let's give the foundation a break, you know? If you do microloans, they give the money back again. Can you imagine they repay the money? It's like recycled money then, and you keep doing cycle loans. And then I'll go to Margaret Mead, who's my favorite, who I always quote because she's so cool. And I think she was thinking about Rotarians when she said it. And she said, never underestimate the power of a few concerned, committed citizens, all of us, to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you.